If you are interested in acquiring any of my Overkills tutorial guides from Microsoft Flight Simulator, or simply interested in supporting the channel, please consider joining us on Patreon. Patreon subscribers level tier 2 and above have access to all of my guides, as well as any future releases that come down the road. Patreon link can be found in the description below. Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Microsoft Flight Simulator news and updates, and today we are talking specifically about Sim Update 13. Sim Update 13 is going to bring us quite a ton of new things, new features, bug fixes, changes, and aircraft. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Let's talk about some of the things that are going to be adjusted right out of the gate. So first off, the white dot fix. This update will add 2 new options to the accessibility menu, which will allow players to change the way the toolbar and white dot behaves in the simulator. So you have a couple of different options to change the interaction instead of just dealing with the white dot constantly. A horizon line bug fix. This is a big one. Currently, it is possible to see the horizon line in some situations through the sides of terrain and objects. They are adjusting that. I have actually seen that, especially in virtual reality. Stability and memory improvements. I'm so happy for this because I think I've been dealing with this for a while now. As you guys know, may not know, I've been on Sim Update 13 beta for a long time. I've been running the beta versions for quite a while. And I've had some horrible issues where it is not uncommon for me, especially when I'm working on my guides, to have the sim open for hours on end. And then, I'll get up, get a drink, whatever it may be, come back and the sim is down, right? Even though none of the parameters have changed. And I think it was due to a memory leak. I think there was another one. I really do. Now, this is an extensive amount of time. That's obviously abnormal use, but still. So, stability and memory improvements. We should see simmers should notice that the platform is more stable than ever, quote unquote, stable than ever, with several crashes being fixed in this update. So that's a nice issue. Logbook issue fix. A lot of you were having the logbook be wiped out when it exceeded 16 megs of size. That has been changed. World update fixes. Gaia Orbix have now resolved the vast majority of open issues from the World Update 3 to 12. So that is a massive window. World Updates 3 to 12 were all impacted by various issues that sounds like they've been resolved. 40th anniversary aircraft fixes. I will admit they were absolutely a letdown for the most part. Microsoft and its partners here have closed the vast majority of open issues relating to aircraft that were added with the 40th anniversary edition of Microsoft Flight Simulator. So it'll be interesting to try all those aircraft out again and see if the performance is more enjoyable now. Here's where things are going to start to get really awesome, and we're going to have more details on this information as we go through this. Piston Engine updates, working title, have adjusted and enhanced the model of piston engines. We'll come back to that in a minute. The Boeing 747 and 787 that were patched with avionics updates 2 by working title once again have added yet additional features. And let's go ahead and start there because I know that's probably going to be the most exciting for many of you. Arguably, quote unquote from this article, arguably one of the most popular additions to the simulator today is Aircraft and Avionics Update 2 or AAU2. Absolutely agree with that. First off, right out of the gate, working title dominated. They've really just dominated the scene all the way around ever since they came into this. But let's talk about what has been done here with the new development. So obviously AAU2 with the 747-8 and the 787-10, added new systems depth, flight model changes, performance changes, and as you guys all know, much more. Navigraph integration, SimBrief integration, new checklists, new features, new screens, new readouts, all kinds of new stuff. New screen displays, cleaner, nicer, more modern looking, everything from the coloring adjustments. They really went to war on these 2 aircraft, which it was absolutely needed. Let's talk about what's coming with SU-13. SU-13 will now make both of these aircraft more accessible by adding the SimBrief integration. So sorry, that was not added to both of them. The Navigraph was, I believe. But they're adding SimBrief integration, which, as we all know, is something that is like a must-have in the aircraft these days. And both planes will now have menus in their CDUs to control your weight, your payload, your fuel. So no more worrying about the Microsoft Flight Simulator weights and balances menu. Personally, the any aircraft that you can step away from that darn window from is a saving grace. I absolutely love it. I'm actually kind of shocked that, for me personally, I still find that I have to use it in the Longitude, and I'm wondering if it had something to do with the beta version of Microsoft Flight Sim that I'm using, because I've heard some of you guys don't have to use the weights and balances menu in the Longitude, so I'm kind of curious about that. But anyway, we'll come back to that here in a minute. Let's see here. The 787-10 will also now benefit from having an electronic flight bag, or EFB, making it the first Boeing and Microsoft Flight Simulator to receive one. Now, I think they're talking about the first Microsoft Flight Simulator Boeing, because, like, for example, the PMDG 737, oh, no, it does not have one. What am I thinking of? Oh, I'm thinking of the Airbus. No, that's right. It is the first Boeing in Microsoft Flight Simulator to have one. That is absolutely true. So, way to go. They beat PMDG to the punch. I was sitting here thinking, I'm like, no, well, that was X-Plane. That is not Microsoft Flight Simulator. I was in X-Plane 11 the other day screwing around with some things, so that's where that came from. Anyway, so super awesome on that. The EFBs are always extremely helpful, especially when it comes to managing your charts and things like that. So I'm really excited for that. That's going to be a big one to me. The 747-8 will be getting an auto fuel system management and an option on the CDU to make the configuration process more automated. So this will be pretty slick. I'm really excited to see what they got going on. The 747-8 also will benefit from VOR and the approach maps formats with the bug fixes. So this is going to be really cool, guys. I'm really excited for the 787 and the 747. And I'm also going to give you guys a heads up on my tutorial guides in regards to the 787 and 747. I knew this was coming. I knew this was happening. That's why I have not touched those guides with the AAU2 update. I've been on the beta for a while. I knew that they were not done with the 747 or 787, so I didn't want to have to do 2 big updates on guides and turn around and do them again a month later. So let's get on to talking about piston engines. All right, so piston engines, as we discussed, are going to also see a pretty significant change. This is going to be really interesting. Now, it seems like this is more so going to benefit turboprop aircraft, but it seems like there's going to be some changes going to affect a little bit of everybody. But let's get into it. So first off, one of the big changes that was, well, let's back up here. The first big change is that any third-party developer aircraft will not necessarily see any change to their aircraft when the Sim Update 13 releases tomorrow. However, it will be now an option that the aircraft can be updated to take advantage of. Now, it doesn't really state whether or not default Microsoft Flight Simulator aircraft, so for example, the TBM 930, will be automatically affected by this, or again, if this is something that's going to have to be adjusted later on. But check this out. So the example given in one of the things that's going to be changing is that turbocharged aircraft shouldn't be needed to be leaned as they climbed. Apparently this goes back to the early days of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 coding. The new method of Sim Update 13 will use the density of the air at the intake to work out what the mixture ratio should be. This means that there's no longer a need to lean out until you're hitting your plane's critical altitude, quote unquote. That's pretty freaking slick. So that's going to be really awesome. And you're going to be able to see some increases in performance of the aircraft, if I'm understanding this correctly. You should see a much smoother climb at a higher performing rate from the engine. So we should see benefits from both sides of it. Obviously, especially with those aircraft that are modeling damage and failure and wear and tear, this should also be a big help there too. The other thing is that they are also adding in regard to the leaning is that the where I lost my spot. Allowing devs will be able to go back and set the mixture ratio for the lever position, meaning that different levels of engine's efficiency, depending on fuel ratio, volumetric efficiency at a given RPM, and calculating fuel flow based on engine air volume metering, preventing an issue where if an engine stopped running mid-flight, fuel flow would be cut off, even if the engine was still spinning. So that's going to also increase the idea of engine failure, emergency procedures, and give you more of an option to experience what a real-life simulation of that event would be, based on the changes that they're doing with the way that it sounds like pretty much it's across the boards, the way that the air fuel mixture is being handled. Again, working title, changed that entire parameter and gave new ways to interact with that particular stage of flight or operation of flight, I should say. giving us and developers more control of how the aircraft's going to interact with those different variables, therefore creating more scenarios from a pilot standpoint that we may either benefit from or not benefit from, depending on how we manage the aircraft. But it should make flying turboprops and aircraft in general, or propeller aircraft in general, much more enjoyable to fly. So I'm super excited for this one. This is going to be an interesting one to try to see how to test it out, but I'm looking forward to that. Now let's talk about legendary flyer number 7. So this is pretty awesome. Microsoft and Asobo have been working with any builds to bring us the MU2 from Mitsubishi. Now this aircraft that they're using is the original version of the aircraft, so basically the executive transport configuration. Now, specify the aircraft license has not, as of the time of this video, been approved yet, so we don't have it as of yet, and doesn't sound like it's going to be launched tomorrow with the sim update, but this is the next aircraft in the Flyers lineup. So still a cool thing, still some great information, and being the fact that any build is behind it, we can expect a pretty darn good freaking aircraft. So let's go ahead and talk about a few of the things that are to be expected with this aircraft. First off, obviously the textures again. Any build is always on point. An unmodified traditional original landing gear and the steam gauge configuration, which I'm super excited about. Again, you guys know that I've been very anxious to step away from the glass cockpits for quite some time. But you check that out, guys. Look at that old weather radar. That thing's freaking awesome. Or you can rock the GNS 530 along with the aircraft. Now you're going to have a bunch of stuff at all. So for example, it rolls on its spoilers. It does not have ailerons in this aircraft, so that's going to make it very interesting. But it also has very large flaps, which is going to give the aircraft some extremely awesome short field capability. As you can see, it's a twin engine high wing aircraft. It has a range of about 800 nautical miles and a service ceiling right around 25,000 feet. So it's going to keep up there with our big boys that we like to fly, and it should be a lot of fun. Cabin altitude pressurization systems are going to be modeled in the aircraft, as well as many of the other traditional features that the aircraft came with. Super stoked for this one. I'm really glad that they're going back again to the old steam gauge configuration. I'm really glad that Any Builds is the one who's got their hands on this one. I really like the aircraft that Any Builds puts out. And I think this one's going to be an incredibly awesome rendition to the aircraft. One of the other really cool things that we can expect to see from this is, as you guys can see, their version of an EFB, which sort of looks like a phone there on the left window there. Sort of excited to see what kind of configurations are going to be optioned there and what we're going to be able to do with it. But this will be another aircraft that I'm going to be very excited to have in the hangar bay there. The only downside that I always have to it is I don't like aircraft that are part of the Microsoft Flight Simulator marketplace specifically, and just because typically it takes so long to see an update. I think if the aircraft were updated for, I wouldn't gripe about them so much, but I really wish there was a way to acquire any updates or fixes to these aircraft third party, but unfortunately I don't think that's going to be an option. However, everything else about this aircraft I think is absolutely beautiful, and I can't wait to have it. Let me know what you guys think down below. Another aircraft is local legend number, I think this is 12 or 13. I can't remember now off the top of my head. But this one sort of struck me by surprise. So the Saab B17, which really breaks my heart that they call it the B17. It's like, no, there can be only one. Anyway, the Flying Fortress is the B17. Always will be, no argument. It won't take any exceptions. Anyways, moving on. So the Saab B17 is going to be local legends again, number 12 or no, I think this is 13 now. And it looks really cool. I don't know if this is an aircraft for me, but Warbird fans will definitely appreciate the aircraft, I'm sure, especially someone who's probably more familiar. I'm actually not very familiar with this aircraft. I don't know that I've ever seen one before. Definitely a very interesting configuration. Looks like it's likely... no, actually, I think those are gear doors that roll up with it. Never mind. I was going to say for a second there, it looked like a fixed landing gear, and maybe it was a dive bomber. But now I'm disregarding that because now I see the linkage and how this all comes together now. So definitely a very interesting landing gear system. It's very interesting that the gear cover is actually just part of the gear arm itself. I find that to be very interesting. However, we don't really know much more about the aircraft. There's no preview videos or anything like that I was able to locate. I did do my hunting and tried to find something for us to hear about sounds or modeling and things like that. But with the local Legends aircraft, they tend to keep it pretty tight-knit as far as any advertisements of that nature. Now, we actually do not see this aircraft. My understanding is until October the 31st. So for those of us who celebrate, it will be Halloween will be the day that we see this aircraft hit Microsoft Flight Simulator. So if this is an aircraft you guys are interested in, at least you have that to look forward to coming at the end of October. Again, this is the Saab B17 Local Legends 13. Last up on our list of amazing news today, and these are very beautiful pictures, World Update 15 has also been announced and on its way to the Microsoft Flight Simulator world, and that is going to be Northern Europe and Greenland. These are absolutely stunning pictures. The architecture of these particular regions are just absolutely gorgeous. This is one of the things that, I think it's one of those things that when you live in the particular region, you don't see it as much as maybe someone from the outside does. Because like here in Tucson, like I know we have absolutely gorgeous scenery. I know we have some incredible landmarks. There's a lot of really great history and architecture here in the city, and I know that. But you don't, quote unquote, like mentally see it. You know what I mean? When you live in the location. So when I love these world updates for that reason. This is one of the things that I don't usually show them on the channel. It's one of those things that I sort of keep to myself and go off and do my own thing. But I'll typically pop on the VR headset and I'll go and check all of these regions out every time they do one of these updates. Because I love seeing the architecture. And when they do the real high definition world updates and the scenery updates, like I'm loving the city updates that they're starting to do too, because it's really bringing a lot of the architecture out and a lot of the detail back into the areas. But I mean, look at these. These look absolutely beautiful. Just such beautiful areas of the world that I wish I could go and see. I'm so jealous of my wife. You know, last year my wife got to go to Norway with her brother, and they had an absolutely wonderful time. And I wish I could have gone with them, but unfortunately, life wasn't in a position where I was able to go. But this is another very, very beautiful one that I'm actually really excited for. Just these are stunning pictures that I can't wait to check out in virtual reality in the sim, especially with something like the Pimax Crystal or even the Vera Aero. Is going to be a really awesome experience. Really, really good job. Anyways, I'm sitting here just getting lost in the pictures. I literally look at everything. I look at everything from the architecture. I look at how close the buildings are. I think about what it'd be like walking through, down over here. Like, this is how my brain works. Like, I take these scenes in, man. But anyways, guys, that is going to wrap up today's news and updates. Stand by for Microsoft Flight Simulator Sim Update 13, supposed to be released tomorrow, so super excited for that, you guys. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video and found it useful. As always, stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you in the next one.